Welcome to Playing Above the Line, where we interview entrepreneurs, business owners, and community activists to get their thoughts and perspectives on leadership. Playing Above the Line is sponsored by Aviso Group, a business consulting and accounting firm focused on preparing clients for the future through innovation and positive growth. Welcome to Playing Above the Line. I'm Alan, your host, and we are coming to you today from Hatch in downtown Fairhope, and Rick Miller has been great to open up his place to us, and so we appreciate Rick and what he does. So if you want to check out those guys, you can go to hatchfairhope.com. Our guest today is Ryley Corliss, and she is a realtor with Ashurst and Niemeyer. So Ryley, we appreciate you being with us.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me.
So let's get this out of the way first. War Eagle, because you're a graduate of Auburn University in finance, right?
War Eagle.
Very good. But you're a realtor. So now how do we go from finance major at Auburn to being a realtor in Baldwin County, Alabama?
When I was a student at Auburn, I decided to major in finance because I actually kind of always saw myself as a realtor or in the real estate sector. I also knew that I was not going to be top of my class and be able to work at some fancy schmancy bank in Atlanta.
Right.
But I knew that finance was a good fit for me for real estate. So after, I actually did take a banking job just because that was what was easiest to fall into after Auburn.
Yeah.
So I did that for a year and a half. And then I decided, you know what, if I'm going to do it, I need to start now. So in 2018, I ended up jumping into real estate and moving to Fairhope.
Okay, good. Well, in your bio, you highlight two of my favorite things. One is Auburn. I love Auburn. And the other is Lake Martin. You grew up near Lake Martin, so you spent a lot of time on the water, I guess.
Yes, I did. And I actually had an internship with Russell Lands on Lake Martin. So that kind of sparked my interest even more for real estate. And at that point, I didn't know where I was going to do real estate, but I did know that wherever I lived, I had to be close to the water. I think that that's like a big part of my life, and I just need somewhere to escape. And even if it's just to sit by the water, I need it.
Yeah. What was your internship at Russell like? I mean, were you one of the dock hands that whipped the ropes around the... Have you seen those guys do that?
Oh,
I mean,
yeah,
like when
I
you
have.
pull up to the marina, at any of the Russell marinas and on Lake Martin, you throw the little dock hand your boat, and he just whips that thing around the cleat without even bending down. It's amazing.
Yes.
That's my favorite part of going to
So
get gas.
I was not a dock hand, but I did work at Kalijah in the restaurant.
Okay, did you? All right,
and I will say this, that I think everybody needs to work in the service industry for part of their lives,
Right.
Especially on the lake in a busy season.
Yeah.
So I did that. I worked at Kalijah restaurant the year before my freshman year of college. Then afterwards, I had an internship, and that was in the marketing department in the corporate office. And that's where I was kind of thrown into every part of the development and then the concerts that they put on, really every part of it. So I got a good aspect of what that company was like. Yeah. And my favorite part about it was real estate. So that's how I ended up this way.
Very good. All right, well, so let's talk leadership here, and we'll weave some of this other stuff in the conversation as we go, I'm sure. But so when I say leader or what makes a good leader, I mean, what are the characteristics that come to your mind?
The first thing that comes to mind for me is consistency. And I think that that's really a hard part of leadership, is being consistent, because everybody wakes up and has those days, and that part can be very challenging, but that's definitely a good quality for somebody. And I say that in consistency and being there for others, consistency in your work. If you are consistent in being there for others, I think that you'll always be known as somebody that's dependable. And I think that that's really important in leadership, because if you're not, I know you get busy and you don't have to, I'm not saying that you have to answer a text right away or answer a phone call right away, but you do need to be available for people that look up to you and that need you. And I think that that is really an important part of being a leader.
Yeah, that's a great point. And maybe the word consistency has come up in the last 90-something episodes that we've done. I can't remember, but consistency and availability to others that you specifically wrote down, I think that's a great point, because it's really hard to be, it's hard to be a leader if you're not there for the people that you're leading, right?
Yeah, it really
is.
Yeah. It really is.
All right, so let's talk about people. So you've given us some qualities of a leader that you admire. So who, in your mind, embodies those characteristics, or who is a leader that stands out in your mind as far as someone that you admire?
So I actually just got finished reading a book called Power Moves. It's written by Lauren McGoodwin. She is the founder and CEO of Career Contessa. I think she is an excellent leader in the business sector for women. And I say that because after reading her book, I realized that she has such good insight on millennial females, which is the age group I put myself in. And we are constantly pressured to do everything and be everything. And I don't know how that happened, but most of us really try hard to be perfect. And she does a great job of just kind of dissecting that and saying, you can have a career and a great career, but you don't have to have a perfect career. Right. So I really admire her in that way.
Well, did she answer the question? Because I've wondered this, and our last guest last week kind of touched on this a little bit, but why is it that if you're a millennial female, or female for that matter, you have so much pressure put on you to be a great career person and to be a great mom and a great wife and a great, homemaker, and that pressure's out there to be really all things to all people, but a guy just gets a pass. I mean, he's just supposed to go to work and be good at his job, right? I mean, that's pretty much what the males are looked at to do. So, I mean, why the double standard? Do you have any insight into that?
That is a great question, because I don't necessarily think it's too much of a double standard. It kind of is, but I've been dissecting it for a while now. Actually, during this downtime that I've had, it's kind of been on my mind a lot. From the time I was a little girl, I feel like I was always told that I could do anything. If I wanted to be the CEO of some huge company, I could do that if I wanted to. If I wanted to be a doctor, I could do that if I wanted to. And that's great, but it also kind of puts something in your mind that, like, I am supposed to be everything. And if I think it, I should do it. And I think women especially have this tear in, I mean, for me especially, I'm married. I don't have children yet. But I think one big theme in my life is that half of me wants to be this career woman, and the other half of me wants to be a mother and be a good wife. And it's this tear. I don't know why it's there, but I'd love to figure that out.
Yeah. Well, you can make $1 bazillion if you ever kind of...
It'd be awesome if I could.
If you ever figure that out and put it in a book, you'd be a millionaire. But that kind of plays into this question we asked, and I love the answer. I'm going to read it just like you wrote it, because I think it says a lot and kind of plays into what you just said. But so we asked the question on the show primer, is there a specific area of leadership or personal achievement you want to focus on? Your answer was nope, which I loved. I just always want to be remembered as someone who did the most that she could with what she's got. I think it's more fun to see what that leads to. That's, I mean, I love that.
Thank you. And that's why the 5-year questions are so hard for me.
Yeah.
Because I think that often we're asked, well, where do you see yourself in X amount of years? And my outlook recently has kind of changed to, where do I see myself today? What can I do baby step wise today to be the best version of myself and give everything I have to the people around me or whoever needs it at that time. If I need it at that time, I'll give it to myself. But most days I wake up and just try to make the best of what today has given me.
Yeah. I think that's a great point. And really, I'm kind of, I don't know, I might be telling myself here, but that we asked that question some, and I do still ask that question in the podcast, especially someone who leads an organization or whatever, where do you see your organization in 5 years? Because I do think that having a long-term vision is important, especially for an organization. But I always hated that interview question. So like on job interviews, the interviewer would say, where do you see yourself in 5 years? You're like, well, I mean, if I get this job, I might be able to tell you. But, if you don't give me the job, I don't know. So you're right. It's kind of a tough question. And sometimes taking it a day at a time is kind of the best tactic. But I do think that, having a long-term vision, especially for an organization, is important. So.
And I do too. I think that is extremely important. And just because it's difficult for me doesn't mean that it shouldn't be asked, because it definitely should be asked. I don't think your business is going to go very far if you don't have a long-term plan. Is the day-by-day outlook going to make you $1 million? Probably not. Yeah. So, that's kind of something that I think there's a good balance.
Yeah, no, I agree. Speaking of, and this is going to be a tangent, but speaking of interview questions, you were involved in SGA at Auburn, right? So first of all, why was it important for you to get involved in student government at Auburn?
So that was another thing, and the whole theme of leadership kind of comes up a lot. Before Auburn, I think in high school I was in leadership positions, but I didn't necessarily consider myself a leader. I went to Auburn and I was thrown into an environment where everyone was involved in something. So that's kind of how I got into SGA. My sorority pushed us to be involved in one other thing besides just our sorority. And of course, they kept me accountable for grades and things like that. But once I got into SGA, I realized that was the kind of stuff that I really loved. I was over student relations with the local government, which was really awesome. I got to go to every city council meeting and talk about things that the students would like for the city to hear,
Yeah.
and vice versa. So I had a spot at every city council meeting that I got up and spoke. I never not got nervous. I will say that. I did it for 2 years, and I was nervous every single time I got up there.
Yeah, well, I mean, that makes sense. That's great, and great experience, I think, to carry to the real world, quote, real world, although college students are in the real world. They're just kind of not in the same
It's
one.
a little easier.
Yeah, right. So, all right, you said one thing. I want to ask one question, and I want to get back to my original question. You said that you don't necessarily consider yourself or didn't consider yourself a leader. Well, how has your leadership view changed over the years? I mean, if you look at what you thought a leader was back at the end of high school, early college, to what it is now, has it changed? Has it evolved?
Absolutely.
And what you think? So what's that look like?
I used to think leaders were always people that were just in leadership positions. And real world told me that that is not always the case. And it's kind of disappointing. You actually see people that are in leadership positions that I would not consider a leader.
Yeah.
So my viewpoint has changed in the fact that you don't have to be the person in charge to be a leader. You can be a leader on any scale, whether that is volunteering at your local animal shelter or running a huge company.
Yeah.
So that's kind of, I think that your qualities depict whether or not you're a leader rather than what you are saying. I think that what you actually do is what makes you a leader.
Great point. I love that. All right, so now my original question, this whole tangent thing that started this. So you mentioned SGA, and this is a little insight for Auburn, for those folks out there who aren't familiar with Auburn, but why do they ask such off-the-wall, weird interview questions anytime you interview for some position at Auburn SGA?
Oh my gosh.
So like, for example, my son was interviewing for this position in the College of Education or whatever, and the first thing they asked him was, what kind of animal are you? He was like, what kind of, I'm like, what do you mean? What kind of animal are you?
Yes.
So, I mean, it's like these stories up there, just these weird off-the-wall questions that they throw out in these interviews that are like, what does that have to do with the student liaison to the College of Education? I mean, I don't know.
I don't know why they ask those questions, but I
just thought since you might have a little insight since you were like on the inside.
Almost triggered like a little bit of anxiety for me now that I'm thinking about those interviews that I had to go through to get there. I've never been more nervous in my life. And I think just the way they interview you, I think that they're trying to challenge you and see how you do, especially if you are, I guess if you are in a liaison position, you're going to have to talk to people all the time. Yeah. So maybe they ask you these off the wall questions because they want you to be prepared for strange questions in situations like that. I don't know.
I guess I love all of them. It's just a whacked out interview situation they got going up there. So
poor thing.
I know. All right, so let's get back on track. So you're a real estate agent. Obviously, COVID-19 has affected everything. What has that made your day-to-day life look like? You and producer Carrie were talking a little bit before we started recording about the struggles of working from home and being motivated and trying to shut your work brain off and compartmentalize work life between, personal life. So, I mean, what does all that look like since this COVID-19 thing has happened?
So to start with, it was a struggle for me. I am very much an in-the-office kind of person. I like to get up, get to the office, and I kind of have a schedule that a real estate agent can't really stick to a set schedule all the time, but I do try to. So we moved houses right in the middle of the pandemic. So that was already a big thing for me. And I'm supposed to be working from home in this new house that I have no idea where to even start to put stuff up in. So that was one thing that was a big challenge for me. And now I really at home, when I'm working from home, I get up, I get dressed, I work out, do all of that stuff just like I would if I was going into the office. Okay. And that has helped me a lot. And it's actually made me have an appreciation for my house and time at home because I feel like before I never spent time at home. So it's been kind of nice, actually. I will say that.
Yeah, routine's important. And and I've heard people, I'm like you, I don't do well working from home remotely. I try to do it as little as possible during this whole thing. But people have said that, get up, get dressed like you're going to work, have your coffee, do whatever. If you work out before, do that and that kind of thing. So that's great advice. But now talking about the importance of, for you anyway, I mean, it's a personal choice, I guess, but compartmentalizing or separating your work and your personal life. You just mentioned you got off vacation. You made the decision not to try to answer emails or take work calls if possible. I mean, why is that important to you to do it that way?
For me personally, and like I said earlier, I think it is totally personal preference. I don't think that everyone has to shut off.
Yeah, agree.
But me, I do. And I think it's important for me because I feel that my brain has to shut off in order to come up with new ideas, come up with new things to do. if you don't give your brain time to shut off and time for itself, I don't think it's going to bring up anything new and fresh. You're just going to end up chasing a bunch of squirrels, is what I kind of call it, all the time. And I think that that's why it's really important to shut off at night and while you're on vacation, and enjoy the people around you. Time with family is so important. If you're only giving them half of you because you're always in your phone, you're always checking something, that's not fair to them. So I think that that's why it's so important for me.
Yeah, I agree. All right, so COVID is still with us. We're still dealing with it. So I asked this question last week. I'm going to ask it again. What have you been forced to cut out with quarantine? What kind of fluff were you forced to cut out from your life that you're not going to bring back in?
Do you mean like monetary fluff, or?
It could be anything. It can be time suckers, or it could be monetary fluff. It could be just something that you were forced to give up that, on the other side, you're looking at it like, I'm not going to do that anymore. I don't need that.
I got rid of toxic people in my life. And if they were bringing me down, I cut them out. And I realized that very quickly through COVID, who was toxic or who was not necessarily toxic, but who is not good for me and who is. And I ended up, it's hard. It's something that's really hard to do. But if you surround yourself with people that are bringing you up, it will improve your life so much more. Because I tend to think if you live with people that have a downward outlook on life or bring you down, it's going to bring you down too.
I can subscribe to that, and I agree wholeheartedly, and I have done that on some level. And I'll tell you what, it made me realize that I don't need as many people as I thought I did.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
So,
You got your little nest at home,
right.
And that's kind of all you need.
Yeah, that's great. All right, so on the flip side of that, what is something that you have started doing, or maybe a hobby or something that you picked up to pass the time since this whole quarantine thing's been going down that you're not going to give up when we get back to normal?
Walking. I love to walk now. I was in gyms for so long, and I do still enjoy that, but I love long walks, and there's just something about like being outside. If you remember, right when this started, the weather was amazing. So I remember going outside and just being there for an hour-long walk, and that's the best thing that I could do for myself. And now I'm a walker. And I didn't think I'd ever say that. I used to be a runner, but I'm a walker now.
Good. All right, and last COVID-related question, but I think it's a good one. What have you learned about yourself through this whole situation that you maybe didn't know?
I would say I've learned that I'm a little bit more resilient than I gave myself credit for. I have been thrown some challenges during this, and I've never really had to go through a whole lot of bad things in my life. So recently, life has kind of thrown some challenges at me, and I really think that I've learned a lot about myself through it, and resiliency is one of those.
Yeah, that's great. So one last question before we kind of get into a little fun this or that game with Ryley. You're active in the Eastern Shore Chamber of Commerce Young Professionals, Jubilee Fest Committee, all that kind of good stuff in your community. So why is serving your community important? Why do you think a good leader should be involved in their community and give back?
Oh, it's so important. I'll say it's important because I think that if you are not investing in what's around you, you're not going to have a say in what goes on. If you have any issue with what's going on in your community and you're not involved in it, then that's the first problem. If you want change, if you see something that's going on that you don't really like, why would you sit and just talk about it with your friends and not be a part of it? I also think that just the camaraderie of it is really fun. I think it's important to make connections. I think it's important to let people know who you are and you know who they are as far as a business standpoint. And I also think that it's a great way to make new friends. I made a lot of friends in my community, and I think that giving back is the best thing you can do for friendships, relationships, business, every part of it.
That's great. And look, if you don't listen to anything that Ryley said this whole podcast, go back and listen, rewind a minute and listen to what she just said about community and being involved. Good stuff. Okay, here we go. We're going to play a little this or that. Are you ready?
Yes.
Dog or cat?
Dog.
Phone call or text?
Phone call.
Cardio or weights?
Cardio.
Facebook or Twitter?
Facebook for sure.
Cake or pie?
Ooh, pie.
All right. Big party or small gathering?
Big party.
Rich friend or loyal friend?
Loyal.
Football or basketball?
Football.
Work hard or play hard?
Both.
What's worse, laundry or dishes?
Laundry.
Jogging or hiking?
Jogging.
Hamburger or taco?
Taco.
Would you like to receive an email or a letter?
Letter.
Tablet or computer?
Computer.
Car or truck?
I'd say truck or SUV.
Okay. Toilet paper over or under?
Over.
See there, I knew you were normal. All right. Pancake or waffle?
Pancake.
Christmas or Thanksgiving?
Christmas.
4th of July or Valentine's Day?
4th of July.
Meat or vegetables?
Veggies.
TV or book?
What's better for me, or what do I do more? I would say.
Yes.
Okay. I mean, both are great, but I'd love to read a book, but, we both know that I probably watch TV more.
All right. Ocean or mountains?
Ocean.
Winter or summer?
Believe it or not, summer. Although a lot of
Really?
my big stuff is winter,
Okay.
but I love the summertime.
Fall or spring?
Fall.
Beer or wine?
Beer.
TV shows or movies?
Movies.
All right. And last few, sweet or salty?
Sweet.
Steak or chicken?
Steak.
Breakfast or dinner?
Breakfast.
All right.
Yep.
We just learned all about Ryley in a minute and a half. So, Ryley, this has been great. Thanks for coming and giving us your insights and letting us know a little bit more about you. And so if folks want to check out you and what you do, they can go to your Facebook, Ryley Corliss, Instagram. We have all that stuff linked in the show notes. Ryley, thanks for being here.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
We hope you enjoyed today's episode, and if you did, be sure to rate, review, and subscribe on iTunes and Spotify. It definitely helps us in the ratings, and it also makes it easier for other folks to find the podcast. And as always, a big thank you to producer and editor Carrie Wolf. Playing Above the Line is sponsored by Avizo Group. If you want to know more about who we are and what we do, you can visit our website at avizogroup.com. That's AVIZO group.com. You can also check us out on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. Thanks for listening.